Okay, so we are going to start our episode on applied electricity, specifically on AC theorem. Okay, and then first of all what we need to know is to know the general formula for doing this. Okay, in this question, the formula that was given to us was in terms of what voltage, right? But then it can be in terms of power or in terms of current. So we had V, which is equal to what? 500 what? Sine 314t, right? And the general formula is V is equal to Vm. It can be V maximum or V peak sine omega t, right? And then omega is the same as what? 2 pi what? F. That means that we can say our V is equal to what? Vp sine what? 2 pi what? F what? T. Very good. So once they give you the question like this, all what you need to just compare the parameters you have here with the question that was given to you, and that will make things more easier for you. So it can be also in terms of current source, where we have our general current to be equal to Ip sine what? 2 pi what? F what? T. Okay. So if you understand this, then we are going to move to solve this particular question that was presented to us. The question states clearly that what? An alternating voltage V is equal to 500 sine 314t. So now, what are they telling us to find? Where a resistance of 2.5 ohm was given to us. The question states that we should determine the peak value of a current over one cycle. So to understand this, then it means that we need to understand how the cycle works, right? Okay. So just look at something here. Okay. So this is a cycle where we have an AC what? Sinusoidal in nature here. Now we are saying that to get the peak value, the peak voltage is actually from here to here, which is what we term as a Vp, right? So if you want to get a peak to peak, mean that twice this particular peak, we get another peak downwards. That's the peak to peak voltage, right? So that means that we can say that our peak to peak voltage what is twice what Vp, right? And then similarly, our peak voltage is actually from here to the maximum. Okay. So if we understand this, then we can what? Move easily. Okay. Okay. So the question says determine the peak value of the current over one cycle. But the question that was given to us was in terms of voltages, right? So if you want to find the current, then we can first of all find the voltage, and then we have our resistance. So the resistance value was what? 2.5 watt ohms, right? And then the peak what voltage was equal to what? 500 watt volts. Because if you compare this to this, you just need to compare and then equate. Okay. So that means that we can say our peak what? Current is equal to what? The peak voltage divided by the resistor, which will give us what? 500 on what? 2.5. So our peak current will now be equal to what? 200 watt amps. So this is the result for the peak current. Okay. So let's move on to the next. The next question states that what? We should determine the root mean square value for the current over one cycle. So the root mean square current or the voltage, right? Root mean square current or voltage. Let me use current in this case, right? Is equal to what? 0.707 watt IP or 1 on what? Root 2 watt IP, right? So which will give us what? 1 on root 2 multiplying what? The IP. In this case, our IP in the circuit is what? 200, because we have already calculated what? The peak what? Current. So 200, which will give us what? A resulting value of what? A resulting value of what? 141 point what? 4, right? That means that what? Our value for the current in the question is what? Our value for the current in the circuit is what? Actually this one. Okay. So let's move on to the third question. What is the average value of the current over one cycle, right? So the average. So anytime you want to calculate the average current, we are saying that the average current is equal to the average current is equal to what? The peak voltage, right? Or the peak current. So it's current. So let's use in terms of current. The peak current to the average current. Vi average is equal to the peak current divided by what? Pi, right? So of which already we have the peak current to be what? 200. So 200 divided by pi, and we know that pi, which will give us a resulting value of what? 63.6 is what? Amps. Okay, so we can also choose that one from the options. Now let's look at the next question. The next question says that we should find what is its peak to peak value of the current. Now don't forget, I've already explained earlier that anytime you are finding the peak voltage, right, twice of it will give us the peak to peak what? Current or voltage, depending on how what the circuit is. Okay, so it means that what? Our peak to peak what? Current, right, will be equal to twice what? The peak what? Current, which is equal to 2 times what? 200, and that will give us what? 400 what? Amps. Okay, now let's look at the last question. Okay, what is the instantaneous value of the current at t is equal to what? 0.1 seconds. Okay, so to do this, we just need to know the formula that was given to you. So realize that what? We had the voltage V to be equal to what? 500 what? Sine 314, and the time is equal to 0.1. So we just put 0.1 seconds. So V will give us what? A corresponding value of what? Minus what? 7.96 what? Volt, right? But don't forget, the question says we should find the instantaneous current, right? So the current will be equal to the voltage that we have had at that particular time. Instantaneous value is what? A value at a particular time interval, right? So 7.96 divided by what? The 2.5, the resistance that we had earlier, right? So that will give us what? A resulting value of what? The current to be equal to minus 3.19 amps, and that will be the end of the road for us under what? AC theorem. So first of all, there are main important formulas you are supposed to know. That what? We have the general formula, which is V is equal to Vm maximum voltage, or Vp, sine what? Omega what? T, right? And I said omega is the same as what? 2 pi what? F, right? And then we just need to compare the parameters. So sometimes they can tell you to find the frequency, right? So we can just say that what? 2 pi ft or 2 pi f, or you can just write or is equal to, then you come and check 314t, right? So t will cancel t out, pi will take or so you need the frequency, so you divide here by 2 pi, here by 2 pi, and you get your frequency. So that is basically how AC questions are structured. It's so easy, you just need to understand your formulas. And then don't forget, whenever you are punching a value like this in the calculator, you need to send your calculator to Radian before you can do it. Okay, thank you very much, and that was